She looks frozen.
That'd be enough.
She's not frozen, but
Well, she's moving, so we know it's not a still picture.
There we go. Can you hear us now, Sheila?
I can hear you.
All right. The time is 7:01 p.m. and I will call this meeting to order. May we have roll call, please?
Mayor Reichel,
Here.
Pro Tem Hanrahan,
Here.
Trustee Britnall, Trustee Klassen,
Here.
Trustee Engelhardt,
Here.
Trustee Poston,
Here.
Trustee Seifert.
Here.
All right. May we rise for the Pledge of Allegiance in a moment of silence. Are you gonna?
You can.
I don't know.
I was gonna say,
Trustee Seifert's going to remain seated because he had knee surgery
if I
recently.
was any
so.
stronger, I'd just hold them up.
Yeah, it's
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, be seated.
Okay.
The first item on tonight's agenda is public comments. Persons desiring to make a public comment on items not on the agenda, please activate the raised hand function in the meeting program. Or Sheila, any phone calls or emails in regards to non-agenda items?
No, I have not heard from anyone.
All right.
No one signed in.
And we have nobody signed in here in the chambers. Do we have any raised hands?
we do not.
Thank you. Okay. Next up then is the consent agenda. It contains the minutes of the November 12th, 2024 Board of Trustees meeting and the approval of a 7-party memorandum of understanding regarding the Garfield County older adult programs for 2025. Would you like to discuss anything on the consent agenda or make a motion?
Mr. Mayor, make a motion to present approve the consent agenda as presented.
Okay.
Second.
Motion by Trustee Seifert to approve the consent agenda as presented, seconded by Trustee Engelhardt. All is in favor?
Aye.
All's opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Do any board members have any conflicts of interest with agenda items tonight? Okay. Do we have any agenda changes by staff or by the board? Okay. The next item on the agenda is the continued first reading of ordinance number 11, series 2024, an ordinance of the town of Silt, Colorado, adopting chapter 5.34 and chapter 17.08.363, and amending land use regulations in chapter 17.13.020 to the Silt Municipal Code to include natural medicine healing centers, natural medicine cultivation facilities, natural medicine products manufacturing facilities, and natural medicine testing facilities within the town of Silt, Garfield County, state of Colorado. And I will turn this over to Deputy Clerk.
Okay. Good evening. Okay, to start off, Ordinance 11 would establish specific zonings and hours of operation requirements for the natural medicine businesses. As I've stated before, Colorado will start accepting applications for natural medicine related businesses as of December 31st of this year. Local jurisdictions cannot refuse any of the businesses, however, may determine time, place, or manner, but it cannot conflict with the Colorado Natural Medicine Code. At our last meeting, the board expressed concern on the proposed zoning requirements being a little lenient. And after staff has consulted with the town attorney and they did some further research, we have amended the ordinance, adding but the security measures and disposal requirements. But the table of uses for the businesses has basically been left the same, continuing with the special use permit requirements and hoping we can ensure performance standards for the businesses. And so we did ask, in case the board had additional questions and concerns, for the attorneys to be present tonight to answer those questions on where exactly what we can do and what we can't.
All right. Any questions or comments from the board?
Well, I'd just like clarification on instead of using a special use permit to instead the use by right.
Use by right. So the use by right would just allow them to come in and apply for their business licenses like a normal business. The special use would allow it to go through both boards to look over their business plan and so forth. But also I will let Lawrence explain that, or Nicole. But that's basically the difference between
Okay.
use by right and then the special use permit.
Okay. So I guess yeah. I mean he'll explain. But my next question is: so the attorneys are recommending we change everything to use by right.
They're recommending the use by right, but we thought staff did with the special use originally that would allow both boards to look at the business plan
Okay. Okay. Got you.
and ensure that their safety protocols and everything were in line.
Okay.
Yeah, and hi, it's Lawrence Bond here with Garp New Hanlon. How is everybody tonight? I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have. I think my memo's in the packet, but a special use permit is something that is needed to allow a land use that deviates from standard zoning for that area. So the example I used would be a bed and breakfast, which is a commercial enterprise being put in place in a residential zone. So that would be that business would require a special use permit because it's in a residential zoning, acting as a commercial operation. So we do recommend a use by right with certain and all of the different parameters of time, place, and manner, security, disposal, everything that we feel would help protect the town and its citizens from anything untoward occurring. The primary reason that we've recommended a use by right rather than a special use permit is because we don't feel that the town would be able to deny an application so long as it met the state standards and in the proper zoning that is indicated as a special use or as a permitted right. And you know, it comes down to the reasonableness standard at issue. So is it reasonable for the town to deny a business license? And if it complies with the state standard and it's in the proper zoning, we don't think it would be reasonable for the town to deny that application. So, but the special use gives the town the kind of a heightened way to evaluate that application for a business license. So we're comfortable with you keeping it in there, but we don't feel 5 years from now or 2 years from now, if someone does apply, you'd have to keep that in mind that it has to be any sort of denial or additional restrictions would have to be considered reasonable. Hopefully that answered your questions, but please let me know if you have any others.
Yes, it did. Thank you.
No questions.
No, my take on this is whether or not we want to keep an eye on businesses that are applying for those types of licenses as the board, or are we okay with just having the town approve as any other business? I personally would like to see it come through the board just so we are aware of those special types of businesses that are coming into town, just as a cautionary, but it could be overly, but that would be my initial feeling. So special use.
I have a question. How do we treat other medical type facilities? Do we categorize those as special use for any reason? Maybe you don't have the answer to that question.
I think Nicole would probably be best to answer that. I would assume that you do not ask for any special use. I think it would be strange to do that. But Nicole, are you available?
I am. I'm double checking really quick and then I will follow up here in just a second.
Okay. Yeah, it would be I'd be surprised just because if it's already zoned as, say, a commercial or an office use, I'm not sure if Silt has an office zone, but if it's zoned in a commercial manner, special use wouldn't be applicable. So it'd be pretty surprising if the town had that in its code.
I guess my only question, in the state statute, it says the distance requirement of 1,000 feet from childcare centers, preschool, elementary schools, in regards to CRS 44-50-302. Is that 1,000 feet a minimum requirement or a maximum requirement?
It's the minimum, so it can be, it cannot exist closer than 1,000 feet, but so we can't impose an additional. I think that's what you're asking, Mr. Mayor, is if we could impose a longer distance, and I think that would be unreasonable and in conflict with the state statute.
Okay.
Whereas categorizing it as a special use isn't decidedly contrary to the state statute, it's just.
No, I don't think so, because there's additional restrictions that are in the code that, in the ordinance, I should say, that we're proposing to put into the code that may require you to, do a review. But if you denied it, then I think we'd be in trouble. We'd be contrary to the state statute at that point for anything that wouldn't be considered reasonable. So whether or not some of the things in the ordinance right now currently are reasonable or unreasonable, we feel that they're reasonable restrictions, but this is a new law. It's a new state statute, so it hasn't been fully fleshed out yet. So there might be some things that make our code need updates in the future, but right now we feel that the code itself would be reasonable with this ordinance. However, the implementation of it or any sort of future guidance from the state might change that. But right now we feel having it as a special use is a legal regulation. I just wouldn't want to give you the expectations that you could deny a business license in the future unless it's an unreasonable application. But what is reasonableness right now, that's up for some determination in the future as other states and applications come through, other municipalities and applications come through, and this gets fleshed out a little bit.
And then I do have an answer for you guys. Our code is really amazing and oddly does not specify medical facility. The closest thing that we have is a professional office that would be 2 use by rights in a B1 and B2, and then a special use in a B3. And that's the same thing for professional services. But it could also be argued that since it's not specified medical facility, our code does determine that any use not specified within the chart is a special use. So we actually don't have a really great code section for medical facility to compare this to.
My concern was I wouldn't want to approve something if it violates the code, and it doesn't sound like it would. And then perhaps the fact that it's a whole brand new law that just got enacted that we've never encountered before, maybe that alone is enough to justify having it as a special use.
So how difficult would it be if we wanted to go special use to put it in there? Would we have to change other parts of the code, or could we just make this, I'm sorry, if we wanted to go the use by right?
We would just have to change the table of uses.
Okay. So
It would have to go through a code change with your approval.
Okay. But it's fairly straightforward. Okay.
And my recommendation, just to put it out there for what it is, would be to keep it a special use simply for checks and balances, as well as getting it in front of both boards. But sometimes, and it depends on, we all wear so many different hats, and sometimes we have different people working on business licenses. And so just making it a special use will give us a better opportunity to really dig into it and make it a land use application so that we can verify the 1,000 feet and that they're meeting all the regulations, that there's not a business license that accidentally gets issued because we weren't able to vet it out the way that we needed to.
And then just to clarify, this is medicinal only. Nobody's selling anything.
That is correct.
Okay.
There's no retail.
It doesn't
Yeah,
leave
no
the
retail,
building. It's
yes.
administered by someone there at the place.
Yeah.
The person administering it has to be licensed through the state as well.
Okay.
I think as Director Centeno just said, with the special use, just having that couple sets of eyes, it draws it more attention, so it's less likely to have something inadvertently get approved that maybe shouldn't have been. It sounds like from the attorney's point of view, though, that there's not, we just can make sure that they are following all the rules, but there's not really you can't say you can't do it. That's unfortunately is not an option, but by having to go through the process, even though it's kind of, it's putting things on the boards, both boards' plates that really they don't have a whole lot of say over, but yet it at least puts it through the steps to verify that they're following all the regulations, everything we want, and something doesn't inadvertently get approved.
Yeah.
It sounds like the state's policies aren't fully fleshed out yet.
No.
And are we forfeiting our right to react to them if we make it a use by right now? Whereas if we treat it as a special use, we reserve the right, as the law evolves and the rules evolve, to have some say in what happens versus what is not allowed. That would be my main concern. If we make it use by right, we're saying whatever the state does, we're good forever. I'm not sure that's a good idea.
Well, the good news is we can change it either way with just doing a code change. It's not like it's set in stone, this is how it is, can't change it, that's it. We have flexibility to make changes later, it's just going through the process again.
And it's,
But going from special use to use by right is probably a more prudent change than starting use by right and then adjusting to special use.
That's my thinking.
that's exactly what I was going to say.
Okay.
We can always loosen things.
Yep.
And again, as the state itself is figuring out how to deal with these businesses, I think we reserve the right to adjust our rules accordingly.
It's like as a parent, you can give them a 7 o'clock bedtime and you can make it later easier. But if you give them a 10 o'clock bedtime, moving it back to 7 is hard.
All right, so I guess legally, how could we get in trouble if we just stuck with special use?
Yeah, I think, if what's on the screen right in front of me, it says the local jurisdiction may not adopt ordinances or regulations that are unreasonable or conflict with the Colorado Natural Medicine Code. So if the town wants to continue with the special use zoning, we just encourage the board to not unreasonably deny any applications. So, I don't think we're going to get a large volume of applications, but if they come before you and the request is reasonable, it's in the right zone district, we've got the applicable distance requirements that are met, and they've got a great plan in place for accomplishing everything that's listed in the code and listed in the state statute, then so long as you don't deny that, we don't perceive any issues. And I also think that special use is a workable solution here. So we don't have any concerns from a legal standpoint.
All right, thank you.
No questions for me?
Nothing? Okay, this is a public hearing. So the time is 7:20 PM, and I'll open up the public hearing in regards to the continued first reading of ordinance number 11, series 2024. Persons desiring to make a public comment on this agenda item, please activate the raised hand function in the meeting program. Or Sheila, any phone calls or emails in regards to this agenda item?
No, sir, I did not hear from anyone.
Okay,
We do not have any raised hands, Mr. Mayor.
all right. And we have nobody in the chambers with us. So the time is 7:21 p.m. and I will close the public hearing and open up to further discussion by the board or a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to adopt ordinance number 11, series 2024, and then I read the whole thing, right?
Second.
Yeah, you don't have to read the whole thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh.
All right.
Okay. And that's a motion to approve ordinance.
Number 11, series 2024.
All right. Motion by Trustee Engelhardt to approve the continued first reading of ordinance number 11, series 2024, seconded by Trustee Seifert. All's in favor?
Aye.
All's opposed? Motion passes 6-1 with Trustee Clausen voting nay. Okay. Next up is the approval of a contract to sell town-owned property at 1535 River Frontage Road, and I will turn this back over to Attorney Bond.
Well, actually, Michael Sawyer was supposed to join at 7:30 to discuss this issue. So I'm not fully up to speed or prepared. So I might ask Jim Mann to step in and give a little intro.
All right, sounds good.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. This is the first step in selling the property that the Holiday Inn sits on. We did meet with the board a couple weeks ago and got some direction in terms of where to go with negotiating. The buyer did agree to the terms that the town put forth, which just the basic terms are that we will be selling approximately 2.5 acres of the current Holiday Inn parcel, which is a total of about 5.3 acres. The town will retain all the property adjacent to in the river and adjacent to the river for the purpose of maintaining the pedestrian or non-motorized trail that has been established on the property. It is further stated that the Holiday Inn property owner would continue to operate the lift station that is on the property and serves the Holiday Inn. The town would also retain the mineral rights to the parcel in the event that somebody would want to utilize those rights for mineral extraction. And I do see that Attorney Sawyer has joined the meeting, so we can kind of throw it back at him at this point.
All right.
All right. Give me 1 second here. There we go. Very good. Well, it's good to be on and be able to present this contract to the board. As I think Jim probably just mentioned, we developed this contract around a purchase price of $350,000. After some discussions with people who could provide the town with understanding of value that seems to be within the range of what this property would list for on the open market. We have tried to develop a contract that implements certain goals of the town. In particular, the property will be required to go through a minor subdivision process, whereby the land essentially from the public non-motorized pathway down into the river will be subdivided off. That property will be retained by the town of Silt after closing. So the property description would then be amended to note that the buyer, the hotel owner, is only acquiring the first or the property upon which the hotel is located. At the time of that subdivision, the town will be looking at any retained easements that it needs for future connections of that trail or other utilities. We also have provided that the pump station, the lift station, which is located on the property and serves only the property, will be conveyed to the owner of the hotel, so the town will not have ongoing liability for the operation and maintenance of that facility. The contract is contingent upon the town passing an ordinance that allows for the sale of this property. That's a requirement in your charter. The contract is also contingent that the property can only be sold if the hotel is acquired, which is to say that this particular buyer, if for whatever reason they weren't able to close on the hotel, they would not be entitled to purchase the property underlying the hotel. That would be something that the town could essentially cancel the contract. The town, we've included some waivers of disclosures and representations in there about the hotel. That's to protect any liability that someone might assert against the town. Here, the issue is the town doesn't own the hotel improvements, so we're making no disclosures whatsoever as to the vertical improvements on the property. We would cancel the lease at the time that the property is sold, the reason being that the land and the improvements will come into unified ownership, so there's no reason to continue to have a lease for the property at that time. In order to ensure that the town gets the maximum financial recovery from the sale of the property, there are two things in this contract. One is that the town or that the buyer will reimburse the town $2,500 to cover the town's legal fees in preparing contracts and disclosure documents. Normally, that would be a cost that would be associated with paying a broker to do this. The other thing that the contract provides is that there are no brokers in this transaction and that the town will not be providing any commission at closing. Essentially, the deductions from the settlement statement that would be allowable would pretty much be limited to the closing fee charged by the title company and the owner's policy for title insurance, which I would expect to be under $1,000. I think that represents the salient terms that we've included in the document. The buyer is very, I think, interested in getting this contract in place. I think it plays into part of their financing. As I understand it, the entity that's financing this transaction wants to see that the owner is under contract to purchase the property underlying the hotel. The other item that will come up, so I guess to back up real quick, we will be, if you approve this contract, it's kind of a multiple step process. You're authorizing the town manager to sign this contract and to get the contract in place. The contract is then contingent upon the town passing an ordinance authorizing the sale of the property. We will be bringing that ordinance to you for first reading in December. And that is a separate consideration. You're not bound to pass that ordinance. seems logical that you would, but you know, you use your discretion as town council people in considering a piece of legislation in that effect. So we'll be bringing you the ordinance, and then after the ordinance has been passed, we will be bringing you the application for the minor subdivision. But in order to allow the buyer to move forward with the acquisition of the hotel itself, we need to process an amendment, or I'm sorry, an assignment of the lease from the current owner to the new owner. So that will also be something that we will be bringing to you in December for your consideration, would be an assignment of the existing lease. So how I see this playing out is that the buyer apparently will be able to acquire the financing to buy the hotel so long as we agree to allow the lease to be assigned, and then the contract for the land, the closing on the land will happen sometime probably in late February, sometime in March, after the subdivision is processed. And after the hotel itself has been already acquired by the buyer. But so in order for us to bring this transaction along, we will need to both pass an ordinance to allow the sale of the property, as well as you will pass a resolution, I think, allowing you to, or allowing the assignment of the existing lease from the current owner to the buyer. I think that's the nuts and bolts of it. I'm happy to answer any questions that the board may have.
All right, thank you, Attorney Sawyer. Any questions or comments?
I don't have anything.
Pretty straightforward.
I've got one question,
Yes.
and I'm not sure how the lease even reads right now on that property, but I would assume if we sell this property, then citizens would not be able to park in that parking lot to access the trail. At that point, private property instead of town-owned property.
I think that's correct. In fact, it may be under a strict reading of the lease today, because we have leased the property, including the parking lot, for the use of the hotel. They could require that today, but yes, I think that's a fair reading going forward after the sale, that there would not be public parking for the trail at that location.
Okay. So then I guess the second question is, once that trail becomes town property, it goes from point A to point nowhere. So our public works guys are now going to have to go keep a trail clean and safe for usage that we really can't access.
It's a very valid point, Mr. Mayor. I think that you know, we should be requiring at a minimum an easement for access to the trail down from the parking lot, so that Public Works can, you know, get down there in its current state. We certainly can talk to the buyer about reserving an easement for a certain number of parking spaces that would be allowed to be used by trail users. And in fact, you could condition the approval of this contract upon an addition of a term allowing for an easement over a certain number of parking spaces for public use related to the trail.
Okay. I know at this point the trail goes nowhere, but I think we should at least try and see if we can get 2 parking spaces to have an easement. Plus the easement from the pull-in down to the trail. Which it might already be there. I mean, the red line on the drawing could easily be off by a couple feet, and maybe that easement's already there, so.
I don't think we intentionally built into that diagram having a couple of parking spaces within the land that the town would either own or have access to, and I think that's a very valid point to bring up.
Other than that, I think it's great to sell this property.
Yep.
There's, the town, that's the reason why the town buys in real estate, is to move on with projects. This money is many, 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 many years of what the current lease is. And we get it all now for investment back into the town rather than $500 a month over the next 70 years, so.
Nope.
So how should we, if the board's in favor of trying to get an easement for 2 parking spaces, should we just add that to the language?
Yes, that you would, motion would be to approve the contract for the town manager to sign, subject to a condition that the contract include a provision reserving an easement over 2 parking spaces for public use.
Okay. Okay. Would anybody like to make a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to approve the contract to sell town-owned property at 1535 River Frontage Road with provision of adding the 2 parking spot in the easement to the trail next to the hotel property.
I'll second.
Okay. Motion by trustee Poston to approve the contract to sell the town-owned property at 1535 River Frontage Road, with the condition to include an easement for access to the trail and to cover 2 parking spaces. And that was seconded by trustee Clausen. All's in favor?
Aye.
All's opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
All right, we'll get the amendment to the contract made and get this over to the buyer with Jim's signature attached to it.
All right, sounds good. Thank you, everybody.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, board.
Thank you.
Next up is manager and staff comments.
Mr. Mayor, I'll just start out. I've got a couple of things that I put in the my written report, but I will verbalize them as well. Hopefully everybody's noticed that we got the southbound lanes of the interchange overpass fixed. Hopefully this pothole repair will last longer than the last one. But I think probably more important in the conversation that I was able to have with regional CDOT folks was they did start the process, and we have a proposal for them to do a speed study along Main Street from the end of basically all the way through town. I don't think the speed limit will change between 9th Street and the east end of town, but I do believe that we will be able to make a pretty good case for the speed limit to be dropped from 9th Street west to probably perhaps the border, the westerly border, but I would think that we'd at least be able to get to 5th Street with it at 25. And the last thing that I wanted to talk about was, if you recall, there had been some discussion by the board to ask for a crosswalk at 8th Street. We were rejected outright by CDOT on that because we had the 7th Street crosswalk, and we were working towards the crosswalk in all 4 sections of the roundabout. CDOT came back and asked whether that was something we still wanted to do. They suggested that they might consider it if we were to close the west side crossing of the 9th Street roundabout and move it to 8th Street. And I wanted to get some feedback from the Board of Trustees on whether you think this would be something that you'd like to consider?
I reviewed this right before I drove through that intersection, and I really like the idea of it being at 8th Street, because the 9th Street intersection right there just feels really scary. Is a little bit, there's a lot going on right there. Yeah, there's people coming right off the highway, getting to go home. So I don't know. I like the idea when I looked at it.
I think it also makes sense just with the amount of foot traffic where it would be, because you maintain the crosswalk still from good to go to crossing 9th Street and on the north and south sides of the roundabout and on the east side, just not on that west side. Is that correct?
That is my understanding, yes.
Because I don't see very many people using it. Most people that are crossing there are probably only crossing there because there isn't a crosswalk at 8th Street. So if there's a crosswalk at 8th Street, I think most people would just utilize it there. And so it would make sense to move that part there to me as well.
No, I'd be in favor. It's in favor of it, but the existing crosswalk at 9th Street, I mean, would CDOT make us tear it out and get rid of it
Yes.
at our expense?
All it would be is removal of signs. Beyond that, I'm not sure that they would be requiring us to make any engineered modifications to the roundabout, but that is something that we would certainly have to discuss.
Okay, I was just curious.
Because I do know, and Director Lundin can chime in as well, but I do know that there's I believe there's a curb cut in the center for that crosswalk.
That's what I was wondering about.
May like us to remove the handicap ramps right there at 9th Street going across so that people don't try to get across. Put a vertical curb there instead of the handicap, the curb cut there. And I believe 8th Street already has the handicap domes and the curb cut there. So we just have to do some concrete work by the liquor store.
Gotcha.
And on the other side of the...
And on the other side.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. And I have a question about the potholes. Did the town do it or did CDOT
No,
do it?
CDOT did that.
Okay,
The town helped them. They asked for help with their backhoe to remove the asphalt.
Okay.
All right, moving on, and I'm very happy to report that after extensive research and conversation, rather tenaciously from Deputy Clerk Melsbury, we have an answer on whether our solar array at the water treatment plant is a benefit to the town. And we can finally report that after working with Samuel Engineering and analyzing our Excel bills, it costs, we pay two providers basically about $80,000, $82,000. We pay about $52,000 to Excel and about $30,000 to Samuel Engineering. So our total utility cost is about $82,000. And if we did not have the solar array, our cost to Excel would have been about $165,000, $166,000. So it's a rough savings of about $84,000 on an annual basis that solar array is providing a benefit to the town. It took us a while to get there, but we are very much happy that it's doing better than we thought it was doing, and we finally understand the way they the way they write their bills. So I think hopefully you are pleased with that. We are still working on the other arrays that we have at the Housing Authority and Town Hall. I know the Town Hall array is not providing any benefit at this point. We believe we have a converter that's down and we're trying to get that fixed. And we're continuing to work on the Housing Authority as well. But two other recommendations did come out of our conversation. One was that our rate tariff or our rate class at Excel may not be most beneficial to the town. So we are going to have a conversation with Excel to see whether we can get on a different rate structure that might be more of a benefit to the town and further reduce our costs. There is one other piece is that a sixth of the electric bill is a demand charge, and it's based on the demand charge for the month. The entire billing cycle is based on a 15-minute period throughout the entire billing cycle that we use the most energy. And so, as an example, if we're turning a couple of pumps on at 7 o'clock in the morning or 8 o'clock in the morning when demand is high and it's expensive, that dictates a 1/6 of our bill for the entire month at that, whatever that demand charge was. And so one of the other recommendations was that we look at having installed a monitoring meter that would allow us to see where that demand is actually popping in, so that if there was something operationally that we could do differently, we would then have an additional saving. And the cost of installing this equipment is not significant. It's a few $1,000s, but it might produce some significant savings to us over the long haul. And we're suggesting that we may want to look at this for not only the existing water plant, the new water plant, but then also the wastewater treatment plant, because those are our high energy users. So I think, all in all, I think we finally got to the bottom of this, and it's, good news all the way around. Just a couple other things I'd point out. There was a request for us to do a donation to the West Elk Trails, Inc. In the past. The town has donated. I think this past year we did a $300 donation, and the question is, does the town board want to provide a donation for the maintenance of the trail system going forward at the same amount or a different amount?
So I'd like to at least continue
Yeah, at least minimum what it's been.
the 300 that we have been.
Yes.
You do still have dollars available in your unassigned contributions budgetary line item. So we certainly can handle $300 or if you want to do more.
300. That's good.
Yeah, I think I'm good with sticking with the 300.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Couple other items that I just weren't written that I just wanted to touch base on. We have on December 9th, we have Downtown Colorado Inc. coming in for a work session to do a little URA, Urban Renewal Authority 101 for the board. The last time the URA met was in 2019. And I'm looking at the possibility of utilizing the URA to help us with some downtown projects, as well as the pedestrian mall and pedestrian bridge, the purchase of property for parking, further beautification and actual redevelopment activity. So we'll want to have a discussion at some point in the future about who wants to sit on that URA board. I can tell you that the rules have changed, and we will have to appoint somebody from the school district or whoever they appoint, and somebody from the fire district as well will sit on that URA board. Also, Trustee Engelhardt has been asked to serve on the Garfield Clean Energy Board that we should consider. We'll have it on the agenda on the 9th for appointing her unless there's somebody else that is really interested in doing sitting on that board. But I think we'll just go ahead unless there's dissension that we would just appoint Trustee Engelhardt to serve. Also, I don't know if you all had received the CML invite to the newly elected officials workshop, which is December 12 from 8:30 a.m. to 4:15 p.m. You can do it in person in Denver, or you can do a hybrid video online. It's great information, and I'd encourage anybody, whether you're new or not, that if you had the opportunity and wanted to go through the workshop, that we'd get you signed up for that. And I think with that, I've said everything I need to say this evening. Other than I will tell you this, that and this will give you hope for those who have young children yet. Tonight was the first night that my 25-year-old daughter actually cooked me dinner. So there's hope in the world.
Very nice.
Very nice.
Any other members of staff have anything?
No, sir.
Okay. All right. Updates from the board and board comments. Trustee Poston.
Okay, I'm looking forward to tomorrow, Silt's 5th annual White Christmas. Come to town and come have fun with us. Starting at 4:30.
Okay. Trustee Engelhardt.
I will go to that webinar, so you can sign me up for that. I filled out the survey for Downtown Colorado, Inc. I would be happy to serve on the Clean Energy Board, the Garfield County Clean Energy Board. And then I wanted to follow up after we heard from the Colorado River Chamber people and make sure that we're set up to go to those events. And there's some kind of ambassadors event on December 6th at the Rifle Public Library that they mentioned, but it didn't say a time. And so I just wanted to follow up on those. Thanks. And yes, tomorrow is the Christmas thing, and it should be a great time.
All right. Trustee Brittle.
Other than happy holidays and all that good stuff, and hope to see a bunch of people out tomorrow.
Okay. Trustee Clausen.
I had a couple of questions, and probably for Nicole and Joe. I've noticed the Autumn Ridge property, it looks like they're filling that lower corner. And doesn't the town have an easement for the water line through there? And my concern is if he adds 4 feet of fill, then our water line's, 10, 12 feet in the ground.
And that's already deep there. because
And it's
that's where it
already deep
goes
there,
under
yes.
the ditch. I will check on that. I think
Okay.
Nicole may have more if they've got permits to do what they're
Yeah,
doing.
yeah, because I just see piles of dirt and it keeps getting bigger.
It looks like he's pulling it out of. from
Out
underneath.
of 1120 Main, yes, the building down
I'm
the
not
road.
sure about permits on that.
Okay.
Nicole would know.
Yeah.
They did receive a stop work order for not pulling permits to do that.
Okay. All right, well, thank you. And speaking of center townhomes, did the park ever get resolved?
That I do not know.
We have not heard back from them to find a resolution for that quite yet.
Okay.
I believe the voting period for that ends on December the 31st. So you should know early next year, which is the equivalent of saying the check's in the mail. I'll follow up with Joy, the property manager.
Oh, okay. And one other question, just because it's budget time. I know at one time you had the thought of trying to acquire more land for the cemetery.
Yes, and I've had a message in with the Bear Ranch. I have not heard back. I'm hoping that I got the right person.
Uh-huh.
But I will keep up on that.
Okay.
We'd hope to get 4th Street into the cemetery instead of the road that goes there now.
Uh-huh.
Safer.
All right, that'd be nice, yes.
Okay.
And
All right.
yeah. Okay. a few days ago, someone inquired about why Ferguson Crossing is on the Golden Gate sign. And I mean, I wrote this, several years ago, but somebody did ask me about that. So that's why I'm bringing it up. For starters, the subdivision where it's located is called Ferguson Crossing. Second, it honors some of Silt's history, namely Silt's first pioneer, George Ferguson. The town of Silt was originally called Ferguson. I can't find a lot about his life before he homesteaded what would become the town of Silt, other than he spent some years at Georgetown and Lake City as a blacksmith. George Ferguson arrived here in 1881, the same year that the ancestral lands of the Ute Indians were opened up to homesteading. According to the book Rifle Shots, Abraham Maxfield, the founder of Rifle, stayed at George's ranch one night in August of 1882 on his way to homestead the future town of Rifle. In 1883, Mr. Ferguson was elected to be the first treasurer of the newly formed Garfield County. George, along with several others, formed the Cactus Valley Ditch Company. He also helped form School District 17 in 1888, serving the Silt area. At his ranch here in Silt, he had a ferry crossing the Colorado River. The ferry crossed the river in the same location as today's bridge. The ferry only crossed the North Fork of the river as the south part was shallow enough you could cross with your wagon. Ferguson's ranch was on both sides of the river where the Holiday Inn and the KOA are now, and encompassed a part of Silt between 5th Street and the alley just to the east of 13th Street, south of Grand. The town's first post office was at Ferguson's Ranch, starting in 1883. The Rio Grande Junction Railway came through in 1889, with the depot on the south side of the tracks at the end of 7th Street. Mr. Ferguson passed away in August of 1892. He is buried at Highland Cemetery in Newcastle. His wife, Melinda, had the ranch until her passing in 1898. In 1899, Henry Hasley received the ranch and had the town of Silt surveyed and platted in 1907, eventually becoming an incorporated town in 1915. George Ferguson didn't get to see his ranch grow into the simply irresistible little town that we know as Silt. He did get to see the railroad being built through the valley, the settlers coming into western Garfield County, and was visionary in knowing that this area would grow and prosper for generations after him. So sorry for being long-winded, but I just felt I wanted to say that.
Nice.
And,
Trustee Seifert.
Sorry I missed last meeting. Glad to be back. And happy Turkey Day.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, just everybody enjoy Thanksgiving week. Be safe, and we'll see you all at the Christmas celebration tomorrow night. That's it.
I got nothing, so yeah, let's see everybody out there tomorrow night. There are fireworks, correct?
There are fireworks, and the show must go on. So regardless of weather, we will be there.
Let's hope for a little bit of snow while we light some trees and light fireworks. So,
Yes.
if there's nothing else, the next item on the agenda is adjournment.
Mr. Mayor, make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Trustee Seifert to adjourn the meeting, seconded by Trustee Britnall. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, everybody.
Great.